It all starts with someone mentioning a rumor that's been going around. The thing is, there's this awful legend of a ghost with a slug for a head that wiped out an entire family. A lot of people might think this is just another stupid monster story to scare people. However, this particular case has a very strange detail that makes it completely different from all the others. This is because the outcome of this entire tragedy ended up being extremely shocking. A few days after the attack, the head of the ghost itself was found hanging right at the entrance of the victim's house, and whoever did something so brutal was the sole survivor of the tragedy, the eldest son, who is only 10 years old. I know the protagonist is a freak. He avenged his parents. Because of this impossible feat, the locals started spreading rumors that the kid isn't human. The story takes us then to a peaceful village surrounded by beautiful mountains, where it all went down. In the middle of the common houses stands the ancient family home, which was destroyed by the monster right in the courtyard. You can still see the creature's head stuck on the tip of a bloody bamboo pole. At that moment, a mysterious figure in a dark cloak arrives at the scene and realizes that they have finally found the right house. She is the ghost hunter Monk Rayon, who, ironically, feels a bit sorry to see the pitiful state of the monster. She remembers the inhabitants begging desperately for her to end the child, saying he was a monster in disguise. Monk Rayon ponders the idea of a ghost perfectly transforming into a 10-year-old kid. After all, dozens of kids wouldn't have the strength to take down a beast like that, let alone the nerve to display its head like that. Determined to uncover the truth with her own eyes, she opens the door to the residence. Upon entering, the hunter finds the boy sitting alone in a corner of the courtyard, all banged up. The kid notices her and asks, "Who is she?" She introduces herself as Monk Rayon, a specter hunter, and the kid is surprised to find out what she is. After that, the two lock eyes. She realizes that this little kid is actually the terrible monster the villagers were talking about. Noticing the boy's empty eyes, she understands the villagers' panic, but decides not to jump to conclusions about him. Looking at the shallow graves nearby, she deduces from his dirt-covered body that he himself dug the graves of his family. Figuring he hasn't eaten or drunk anything in days, the hunter decides to look for something among his belongings and places a bowl of oatmeal on the floor, right in front of the kid. Monk Rayon tells him to eat, but the kid is confused and asks why he's giving him food. He asks if he hadn't come all this way just to end his life, following the frightened request of the inhabitants. The kid explains that everyone always hated him for his weird eyes, and now that they saw him take down a specter, they just want to kick him out. Hearing such a mature outpouring for his age, Mon Rayon is moved. She decides to sit next to him and asks him to tell her in detail how he managed to take down the creature. At that moment, memories of that terrible night start to flood the young man's mind. He remembers perfectly seeing his parents' lifeless bodies lying on the floor. The kid stayed hidden in complete silence while the terrible monster devoured the rest of his family. He watched everything through the crack in the wooden door. The shocking image of that tragedy was forever etched in the mind of the little boy. But seeing that, he couldn't just stand by. Driven by a strong desire for revenge, the boy managed to get a sharp, improvised bamboo spear. With great courage, he put all his strength into driving the weapon directly into the neck of the terrible monster. The kid explains that he hid in the swamp, tracked the beast, sold his belongings to buy information, and got his revenge. This protagonist is a good one. I already like him. Monk Rayon asks him why he left the head on the gate, and he responds that he wanted to give the monster a taste of its own cruelty. Even though it seems like an incredible story coming from a kid, she sees in his eyes that there's no lie. She notices the bamboo with salt and knows that, even with that trick, defeating a ghost like that is a tough task, even for adults. Monk Rayon notices the coldness, the determination, and the precision of the boy, realizing that he was born to be a ghost hunter. The kid admits that, now that his revenge is complete, he has no reason to keep living with his head down. He reveals that his only remaining wish is to simply leave in peace right there, near his family. Hearing that, Monkey Jones just gives the kid a light tap on the forehead with her fingers. The kid doesn't get it, and she decides to ask him his name. Finding out he's called Issa next, the hunter asks him if he really believes he got his revenge by just hanging that head on the gate. She questions if he isn't just settling for that outcome, pretending that was enough for him. Monrajon asks him how he can be satisfied with having taken out just one specter after losing his entire family and his own will to live. Then, he turns around and warns him that since he is just a regular human and not a monster, the hunt is off, saying goodbye to him in a distant manner. After hearing that, Issei pauses to think. The scene shifts to sunset in the village, where the village leader reacts with extreme indignation and surprise upon hearing Monraon's decision. The man shouts angrily, asking if she really isn't going to take care of the kid, but she responds calmly that the youngster is just a normal human being. He tries to offer her even more money to convince her, but the hunter immediately responds, asking what is the reason for so much hatred towards that kid. The leader bellows, pointing at the kid's terrifying eyes, insisting that he's a cursed creature that will bring total ruin to the entire village. With utter contempt, Monkrayon bluntly tells him that, in reality, the true monsters seem to be the inhabitants of this village. He warns that rejecting a child just for being different is a serious mistake, that harboring so much hatred will only end up attracting real specters. The old man stubbornly insists that the kid is the one attracting the creatures, but she realizes that these ignorant folks will never listen to reason. Determined to handle the situation her way, Monkrayon removes part of her hat and reveals a sharp horn on her head, frightening the resident and revealing her imposing true identity to everyone. She issues a stern warning that no one is to bother the young orphan again. With a terrifying gaze and her eyes glowing red, she warns that anyone who disobeys will face a severe punishment from her, a fearsome dokebi. The resident hits the floor terrified, begging for help, but she explains that her kind has an alliance with humans to hunt monsters. She mocks, saying that to small minds everything looks the same, and once again decrees that the child's termination service is cancelled. As the hunter retreats into the darkness, the man complains bitterly, upset about having hired a supposed creature to help them. Shaking with hatred and fear, the village leader panics, not knowing what to do from now on to solve this terrible problem. Blinded by ignorance, the villagers come to the cowardly conclusion that they have no other choice but to take matters into their own hands. Fully armed, they march furious, with the sick goal of protecting the village from the child. In the next moment, sparks of fire start to spread uncontrollably through Issei's old residence. The villagers surround the house and set it all ablaze, watching as the arson consumes the residence cruelly in the middle of the night. The leader starts to laugh like a complete maniac, proud and screaming that they should have burned the place down from the start. Those over there are the real monsters, a bunch of losers. They shout that the little creature won't be able to stay there without a home, as the fire dangerously advances over the makeshift graves. Desperate to see the graves of his parents and siblings threatened by the flames, he runs against the fire to try to protect his family's burial. The man, completely unhinged, keeps laughing maniacally, ordering the flames to burn the child until nothing but ashes remain. Suddenly, a monster begins to materialize, and all the negative energy and resentment of the inhabitants start to channel. From that sickening hatred of the people, a new and colossal specter with multiple eyes materializes terrifyingly in the middle of the village. The giant creature roars furiously, ordering everything to be burned in its path, unleashing immense destruction with its dark power, and the terrifying apparition is observed completely stunned, realizing that another terrible specter has just emerged before him. The freaky monster roars savagely, bearing sharp teeth and an extremely threatening purple, malevolent aura. Without hesitation, the specter unleashes an overwhelming burst of purple energy, slamming into the ground right where the kid was standing. The kid barely manages to react in time to the shocking speed and immense destructive power of that sneak attack. With the force of the violent explosion, Issei is thrown far through the air and lets out a groan of pain as he is hit dead on. He tumbles uncontrollably across the dirt floor amidst the smoldering debris. Fallen to the ground and completely covered in wounds, the boy struggles to stay conscious despite all the damage to his body. As he looks to the side, desperation takes over him as he sees that his family's makeshift graves were completely destroyed. With the little strength he has left, the kid tries to push himself up off the ground to face the terrible threat one more time. He stares intently at the gigantic specter that emerges from the smoke, and realizes he'll have to fight again if he wants to survive this night full of fury. He bitterly laments that his family was taken from him, and now they're even destroying his chance to rest beside them. Amidst that purple smoke, the disfigured face of the village leader appears, laughing in a deranged and terrifying way. The specter tries to crush the kid with a brutal attack, spreading damage and destruction across the courtyard, holding his makeshift weapon firmly, and he thinks he had nothing left to lose in this cruel world. However, upon seeing that the eternal rest of his loved ones was desecrated, he realizes with fury that there is still something valuable to protect there. In that moment of danger, Moncrion's words echo in his mind, asking if he truly believed that was real vengeance. His voice keeps echoing in his head, questioning if he was just accepting that bad outcome out of sheer resignation. Those memories ignite a deep hatred in Issei's chest, awakening a savage fury and a terrifying determination in his gaze. Suddenly, a massive and violent explosion of purple energy erupts around the boy, cracking the ground beneath him. As his hidden power awakens brutally, Issei dives headfirst into the gaping maw of the monstrous beast. The twisted souls within the specter keep cruelly whispering that he lost his family, his will to live, and everything else. The harsh words of Monk Rion echo in Issei's mind, asking how he could be satisfied with defeating just one creature. Meanwhile, the gigantic and bizarre monster formed from the souls of the inhabitants roars with total fury in the middle of the entire ruined courtyard. The specter opens its immense mouth full of sharp teeth to devour the kid once and for all. However, he gathers his last strength and leaps, driving his axe right into the center of the monster's giant eye. The terrible creature staggers and writhes in pure agony, while the young boy lands on the ground, enveloped in a powerful purple energy. The kid reaches out, his hand ablaze with mystical flames, and declares that he finally understands the true meaning of his vengeance. He vows with a look of pure fury and determination that his reckoning will only end when all the specters are destroyed. But right after making that heroic oath, the boy completely exhausts his energies, and his arm begins to fall limp, unable to withstand the extreme fatigue and the gravity of his injuries. The child faints amidst all that smoke. However, before he falls helplessly to the ground, Monrajon's firm hand appears to securely support the boy's arm. The Spectre Hunter slams her foot down with extreme force, unleashing a tremendous mystical shockwave around her. Lifting the kid with no effort, she unleashes an overwhelming purple energy blast that just obliterates the specter. The monster's massive eye, still impaled with the axe, widens in sheer terror before it completely disintegrates into thin air. Moncoyol looks at the unconscious child in his arms, deeply impressed that he never backs down from monsters, despite being so small. She holds him tenderly and praises young Issei, acknowledging the extraordinary bravery he showed during the fight. She looks down on the village with deep contempt and says coldly that those intolerant people are pathetic compared to the kid. The hunter explains that resentment creates demonic energy that attracts monsters, and that's why she warned them to stop all that evil. She points out that even the arrival of the first specter that destroyed her family could have been a direct consequence of the villagers' wickedness. Showing no mercy, Moncrion orders them to atone for the terrible suffering they caused Isekon's family, unleashing a final burst of his destructive power. The Spectre Hunter clears the area once and for all. The Ghost Hunter clears that fiery area once and for all. The gruesome remains and teeth of the defeated creature start to disintegrate completely, vanishing under the dawn's light. The monster lets out its final, agonizing roar of defeat before vanishing from this world entirely. Holding the child, Mongolian walks calmly, turning his back on the destruction, and comments that the creature was too loud for his liking. Sometime later, Ys starts to regain consciousness in a bed, and remembers his promise to exterminate all the specters that exist. Manhwa approves of his decision and says that if he manages to survive even living as a vengeful spirit, better days will surely come. He assures him that he will help him gain strength for his revenge, and that he will take care of him until he can stand on his own 2 feet. With the sun rising in the background, the hunter walks away carrying the young Issei, determined to adopt him from that moment on. The story moves to a peaceful and tranquil place, where a beautiful orange-winged butterfly gently floats under the blue sky. The butterfly glides gently near the long and striking purple hair of the specter hunter in the courtyard. As the insect gently lands on Manhwa's shoulder, Issei rests peacefully in a bed, wrapped in bandages from head to toe. The kid starts to stir slowly and lets out a soft groan of pain as he wakes up from his long, deep recovery sleep. Noticing the movement in the bed, Manhwa asks him calmly if he finally woke up from that forced rest. The kid tries to speak, and she, patiently, introduces herself again as Manhwa, the ghost hunter who saved him from the fight. She honestly warns him that he can hate her if he wants to, since she decided to save him from that situation on a whim. At that moment, the terrible memories of the battle against the new giant specter come flooding back into the boy's mind. He sadly remembers seeing the graves of his family completely destroyed by the flames. His last memory, clear from that tragic night,
is of the mysterious hunter carrying him away in her arms at dawn. The young man realizes with a heavy heart that the destruction of his parents' and siblings' graves, unfortunately, had not been just a nightmare. He sits on the bed and is amazed to see his own skin under the bandages, noticing that not a single burn scar remained. He thanks the medical care and praises the Dokebi people, leaving the hunter surprised that he remains so calm, even knowing what she is. The kid explains that she treated him really well, and that's what matters, silently making her understand that he is a kid free of prejudice. Manhwa asks if his name was really Issei, and the kid confirms it, straight and serious. He asks if he thought about his offer to follow her to learn the arts of exorcism, praising the boy's great natural talent. And he admits that this offer of a free home and training seems too good to be true, confessing that it makes him a little suspicious. The hunter smiles, seeing how sharp he is, and warns him that if he really wants to go with her, he'll have to get ready. He reveals that the training will be in the realm of the Dokebis, an environment brimming with demonic energy and extremely hostile to humans. Manhwa warns him that her training methods are so brutal that every day of his life will seem like a real nightmare. If he doesn't want to, I do. Punish me, please. Faced with that terrifying warning, young Issei repeats that last word with an extremely thoughtful and mysterious look. Surprising the hunter, he says he likes the idea, because without rigorous training like that, he would never be able to exterminate the monsters. Decides to finally accept the proposal and follow Manhwa, causing the powerful specter hunter to flash a slight sideways smile. Manhwa admits he was just trying to scare him a bit with his warnings, but he realizes that his determination is truly unbreakable, so he orders him to eat up. Since the kid needs to fully recover from his injuries before they can head off to anywhere else, he reaches out, determined to take the bowl of hot food, which was prepared especially for his recovery. As she walks away, the hunter glances back with a smile and tells him to make sure he eats every last bit on his plate this time. He nods silently and starts wolfing down the food, determined to regain his strength as soon as possible. The story then takes us to a mysterious and vast mountain range, shrouded in dense, silent fog under a cloudy sky. As they walk, the kid says the weather is really weird, and she explains it's due to the evil energy of the place, warning him never to cross the sacred rope, taking a few more steps along the misty path in the mountains. The ghost hunter tells them that they have finally arrived at their destination before an immense wooden gate reveals that there lies the entrance to the temple of the ghost guardians, where she will live in the realm of Dokebi. The ancient plaque on the gate sternly warns that this temple, guarded by spirits, is forbidden territory for any ordinary human. The kid asks if there really isn't a problem with a human going in there, and she jokes back, asking if he suddenly got scared. He explains that he was only worried about causing her trouble, making the hunter silently think that he is a very unusual kid.
Mangrion tells him to relax, asserting with authority that no dokebi of the temple would dare question the orders of their own leader, and the curious title echoes in his mind, trying to grasp the great importance and true position that the hunter holds in that place. When the immense wooden gate finally opens, the boy's eyes widen in complete shock and admiration for what he sees. Before him rises a breathtaking and gigantic hidden city nestled among the mountains, filled with ancient temples and colorful trees. Amazed, he comments that it seems like a completely different world, and she asks him proudly if he didn't think the place was beautiful. Watching the inhabitants walk in the grand temple plaza, the boy wonders to himself if all those people in the distance are dokebis. Some inhabitants with horns on their heads start grumbling angrily at the entrance, wondering how a mere human dares to enter the sacred temple. Two young dokebi kids watch the little one pass with a serious and suspicious look due to his unusual presence in the place. Suddenly, Monk Rayon shouts out loud for everyone present, imposing that Issei will be his new exorcism apprentice. He commands in a firm tone that all the inhabitants treat the child with kindness and respect, for from now on he is part of their family. The dokebis listen to their leader's strong and decisive words with great attention, accepting the announcement without hesitation. The inhabitants soon smile warmly and say that if the boss brought him, then everything is fine, remarking that it's great to have a new member in the community. Issei is left deep in thought, realizing that it only took one word from Monrion for everyone to accept him instantly. The hunter smiles proudly, thinking the kid is amazing, and decides that this noisy welcome is enough of an initiation. So they invite him to perform the most important part of the entire ghost hunt, leading him to a table filled with abundant dishes of food. The leader orders the friendly cook to bring even more abundant dishes to the table, asking for special attention to the meat dishes, sitting before the feast and wonders what all that food has to do with hunting ghosts. Not getting the connection to the training, Montrion playfully puts his hand on his head and warns him that he's got a big problem if he wants to practice exorcism. She explains that he forgets he's just a growing kid and that a kid's duty is to eat and sleep a lot. The hunter warns him that if he doesn't strengthen his body now that he's growing, he'll bitterly regret it when he becomes a real hunter. The kid gets it and decides to eat as much as he can, accepting that building a strong body is the first step for his revenge. He starts wolfing down the meat, cheeks puffed out, leaving the ghost hunter quite pleased beside him. Suddenly, cheerful and quick footsteps approach the table, and a voice calls out enthusiastically to the temple leader. A little dokebi with purple hair named Gong-ah comes running up, super happy, carrying a huge bowl full of meat. It looks like we found the perfect girl for our protagonist, Mongryon. She says goodbye, saying she has chores to do, and asks Gong-a to guide the kid to his room. After making sure he eats it all, the girl eagerly accepts the mission, while Issei, mouthful of food, starts to sweat bullets, thinking this is the real nightmare. Gong-a starts to touch his hair, curious about the lack of horns, and asks his age, to which the boy responds softly that he is 10 years old. She is shocked to learn that he is only 10, being so mature, while the kid finds it weird that she acts so childish at 22. The old cook laughs and explains that humans age twice as fast as dokebis, which means Gong-a is only a year older. Anyway, the girl cheerfully celebrates, saying that makes her Issei's big sister, and she's thrilled to have a little brother. The chef ruffles Gong-a's hair and asks her to take good care of him, and the little girl beams with pride as she promises to look after her new little brother. The young orphan just watches her silently for a brief moment with his usual calm, serious, and quite mysterious gaze. A little later, Ys shows up, walking with difficulty, clutching his stomach, completely stuffed from eating so much meat. He complains that he ate too much, but the girl laughs friendly and says that, as he is young, his stomach will digest it all very quickly. Ganga comments that he's really lucky to be training directly with the boss, and the kid asks if the ghost hunter is really that amazing. The girl reveals in surprise that Monk Rayon is a living legend who has hunted monsters for 300 years. Being much stronger than all the dokebis there combined, the boy reflects on the fact that she has lived for over 300 years, realizing how different reality is between humans and dokebis. He concludes that, despite everything, looking closely at Gong-ah and Monk Rilon, he can't see much difference between them and normal people, looking at the girl's genuine smile, and it's clear that he's feeling a warm, welcoming humanity that he never saw in his old village. All of that seems very strange and new to him, until suddenly, a rather arrogant voice echoes through the courtyard, shouting at the human to stop right where he is. They turn around and come face to face with an angry mob, complaining that the kid had the nerve to enter the kingdom, and on top of that, train directly with their busy boss, the group's leader. A young, blue-haired dokebi cracks his knuckles with a wicked grin and invites them to have a less-than-friendly chat. Gong-ah gets extremely nervous when she realizes that the one standing in front of them is Il Chui and his rowdy temple crew. The punk looks at the kid with a sneer, while the young orphan just wonders if they're the type of people who love to cause trouble for no reason. Time passes slowly in the place, and the temple sky begins to take on beautiful orange hues with the arrival of sunset in the mountains. Gong-ah desperately tries to intervene, shouting at the group of bullies and demanding to know what they think they're doing there. However, the young Issei appears completely beaten and hunched in pain in the middle of the courtyard, showing that he has taken a severe beating. The girl warns that the leader won't let this slide, but the rival responds saying that was just a normal combat training in the temple. He mocks, saying he just wanted to show him his place so the human doesn't lose his life to a real monster, claiming the kid is too weak. The bully reveals his jealousy behind the assault, upset that the hunter chose to train such a frail kid instead of him. The orphan struggles to his feet, wiping his own blood away, and realizes that all that violence was treated as just a simple drill. With total calm, the kid apologizes to the bully, saying peacefully that he thought they were just messing with him, and confesses that he took the hits in silence to avoid causing trouble in the temple, regretting having ended up ruining the group's training. Hearing such a sincere and mature explanation coming from his own victim, Il Chui's eyes widen, and he is completely taken aback. Pissed off by the kid's attitude, the bully completely loses his cool and lands another extremely violent punch right in Aisha's face. He starts unleashing a quick and aggressive flurry of punches against the kid, who tries to defend himself from the relentless attack. The aggressor screams furiously, asking if the kid thinks he's better than him just because he's holding back his punches to not take his life. The young orphan keeps taking hits repeatedly to the face and body from the rapid assault of his enraged opponent. However, the bully notices with rage that, even though he's beating the kid mercilessly, the fight doesn't feel satisfying at all. This is because he realizes that the kid refuses to close his eyes at any moment, keeping his gaze fixed on him, even as he takes the hits. The rival gets enraged by that defiant stare, but Issei stays focused and calmly notices that all his attacks follow a repetitive pattern. At that moment, the attacker and everyone around him widen their eyes in surprise as they feel a sudden and dangerous shift in Issei's fighting stance. With astonishing speed, the kid dodges the rival's blow and advances, throwing a counterpunch with all his mystical might. The bully sees the kid's fist coming at him, and his pupils dilate in pure shock as he realizes he won't be able to dodge it in time. Issei's brutal, precise punch lands squarely on his rival in the middle of the training yard, sending a massive shockwave through the air. The rival holds his injured face, a look of pure physical pain, sweating cold and unable to believe what just happened. The tough guy ends up falling flat on his back, completely dazed and weak from the powerful blow he took straight to the jaw. Quite shaken and bleeding, Issei regrets that his reach is short and remembers his mentor's advice about the importance of eating well. He walks over to the fallen aggressor and tells him that, even if he seems weak, he prefers that his rival fights with all his might in the upcoming battles. The kid extends his hand to help him up, reminding his rival that the real monsters in the woods won't show any mercy to anyone, with a determined look and no sign of weakness. The kid invites his rival to a new combat training session in the future. Night gently falls and blankets the entire beautiful and silent mountain temple with a starry cloak of deep calm. Inside one of the temple's rooms, Mon Rei-on watches the injured boy with a rather serious and thoughtful expression on his face. He bluntly remarks that the kid ended up in a pitiful state, all banged up, on his very first day of training. He says he heard about Lang no Me no Me, and he calls him to heal his wounds,
while the kid tries to change the subject, saying it was just a common routine practice. The ghost hunter reaches out to Issei, releasing a bright green mystical energy to start treating his injuries. The kid acknowledges the healing magic, and she remarks that fighting is part of growing up, but tells him to find her if things get out of hand. The ghost hunter asks if he managed to land at least one hit on the bully, and the boy lies, saying there's nothing to worry about, and insists that the opponent wasn't hit even once, explaining that he preferred not to retaliate to avoid causing trouble as a guest in the temple. Annoyed by the lie, Monk Rion grabs Issei's face with his magical hand and lifts him into the air with ease, leaving the boy quite frightened. She complains that she's busy patching up a stubborn kid's face,
and he immediately realizes that he's pissed off his mentor with his excuse. She reminds him that she introduced him as family, and orders him to stop acting like a shy guest, making the boy promise to keep the advice in mind. To avoid misunderstandings, he tries to explain himself, making sure to say that he didn't just stand there taking the rival's hits out of shyness, or because of his position. The kid admits that the rival was fighting with all seriousness, and that he just wasn't able to land any hits during the fight. She agrees sharply, saying that's obvious, revealing that the rival has enough talent to train on equal terms with adults. And he does ponder the revelation about his strength, and asks if, with so much combat skill, the rival would be able to hunt ghosts. With an extremely serious and profound look, she responds with absolute certainty that if the rival were to hunt monsters, he would surely lose his life. She points out that irony, explaining that, even if the bully is stronger than Issei, he'd go down in a real fight for not having the same coolness that the kid does. The hunter explains that exorcism isn't just about brute force, reminding him that he only defeated the specter by using salt after discovering its weakness. He says that Il Tsui would go down fast against a strong monster due to lack of study, while Issei would fall if his luck just ran out one day. Holding up two fingers, she warns him that only by combining theoretical knowledge with martial arts techniques is it possible to practice exorcism. Next, he decides to give the little orphan his first and important official task so he can start his training for real. To start building his strength, young Issei begins an exhausting routine of physical exercises, running non-stop all over the temple's outer courtyard. He also trains by doing several sets of tough push-ups on the floor to better develop his weak muscles. On top of all the daily physical effort, the kid spends several hours focused on studying among immense piles of books in the grand library of the place. Gong Ah watches him in complete silence, leaning on the table, finding it amusing the impressive and stubborn dedication the kid has with his studies. She asks if he isn't bored after a whole week of this, but he replies that he needs to focus on the task to get the boss's permission. The kid explains that his mission is to read all the books in there, leaving the girl in complete shock as she realizes the enormity of that challenge. The young girl jokes that she'd rather lose her life than read that much, but the boy responds very calmly, saying he quite likes the habit of reading. She points to his wounds and asks why, making Ys explain that he needs to win a practice fight to prove his worth in combat. Ganga repeats the word, confused, unable to imagine who the orphaned kid would be fighting every day to end up so banged up. The boy appears again, sitting on the stone floor of the courtyard, staring straight at the blue-haired opponent after another tough fight. The bully complains, pretty pissed off, about the kid being so stubborn and challenging him to a fight every single day, and responds that it's just combat practice, making Gong A finally understand where all the kid's mysterious injuries came from. She wonders if defeating Il Choi is her mystical task, knowing that humans rarely beat dokebis relying on brute force alone. The kid explains to his rival that the practice is to prepare him, because the real monsters in the forest won't leave him alone just because he doesn't want to fight. Extremely pissed off by the human's audacity, the bully stomps heavily on the stone floor of the courtyard, shattering the ground around him. He warns him that he's holding back and threatens to break his bones if he's stupid enough to come back and challenge him again. Gong Ah runs desperately and puts herself in front of the kid, loudly ordering the bully to stop immediately his attempts to scare young Aish. The bully walks away, grumbling with jealousy, complaining that the kid always hides behind girls and wondering what he sees in him. Without showing fear of the threats, the young HYS states that he won't blame him if his bones break, insisting that they fight again. Hearing such a brave and determined response, the blue-haired bully stops and falls silent, deep in thought. He looks at the temple building and concludes to himself in his thoughts with absolute certainty that this human kid is completely nuts. The blue-haired kid continues his silent way back to his two groupmates, but suddenly he hears the orphan shouting his name loudly in the middle of the training yard, and turns around, quite surprised. Back there, that stubborn Ise is beckoning him to fight again, and the kid kept challenging his rival to a fight every single day. The bully throws furious punches, asking why the kid is ignoring his warnings, since he can't actually break his bones due to the rules. He screams at him to give up, insisting that a talentless human like him will never be able to beat a dokebi warrior. The scene shows a green leaf falling slowly near the main temple building, marking the start of the passage of time in the training grounds. The three tough guys watch the kid walk away again, but something about the human's behavior starts to deeply unsettle the group's leader. The blue-haired kid wonders, intrigued, why the kid's eyes don't even seem to be focused on him during their fights. That big, uncomfortable, and mysterious doubt starts to haunt and disturb the young warrior's thoughts as he walks through the LV-Zenth Stentis temple. He's training, pounding a practice dummy with a lot of fury, bitching to his buddies that the whole situation is annoying. The kid beats the hell out of the straw dummy, unleashing all his pent-up frustration and rage from his training. He keeps pounding away, angrily wondering if the newbie really thinks he was just sitting around while the other guy trained. He also swears that he won't let the newbie steal Gong A's attention, and certainly not the approval of the temple's big boss, whom he admires. He proudly declares that the difference in talent between them is immense, and that the weak fists of that little half-human will never catch up to him. Time marches on in the place, revealing the green leaves of the temple trees, swaying gently in the cool breeze. The leaves completely change color, taking on beautiful reddish hues with the arrival of a new and cold autumn season in the kingdom's mountains. A whole year goes by, and the two young warriors appear again, facing each other in the grand Gong-A training courtyard, with the rest of the inhabitants witnessing the fight. Suddenly, their eyes widen in complete shock, unable to believe the scene before them. The tough guy himself is completely frozen in fear, touching his injured face with an expression of immense surprise and disbelief, and looks at his own fist and realizes that, for the first time, his attack has hit his rival squarely. Trying to play it cool, the bully takes a few steps back and shouts that he only got hit because he slipped by chance, completely pissed off to see his defense broken. The aggressor lunges forward, throwing a punch with all his might, to try and finish off Ise. However, with extreme agility and ease, the young orphan simply dodges the blow with mastery, showing no physical effort. Iltui is incredibly shocked to see Isis dodging all his blows, thinking that he also trained really hard all year. He wonders if his rival's year of training was worth more than his own, and begins to understand that exorcism requires as much knowledge as martial skill. The truth is, most demons have tremendous and terrifying physical strength. Since humans can't overcome that difference with sheer effort alone, there's a clear limit to hunting demons by training the body only. Still, the blue-haired youth advances with fury to try and launch another quick attack. The secret that truly allows humans to overcome that physical barrier against such powerful creatures is, precisely, the theoretical knowledge they accumulate, and he moves with extreme precision, dodging agilely beneath his opponent's attack, fighting while knowing exactly the vital points and the opponent's movements. A seemingly impossible task like exorcism becomes totally doable. But all that theoretical knowledge is useless if the physical blows don't hit the real target. That's why the warrior needs one more thing that is crucial. They need to demonstrate true physical combat skill. Ilchue is hit square in the chest and face with an extremely fast sequence of blows. Only when the warrior completely masters both the study and the practice of martial arts. That's when it becomes possible to hunt real demons, even with just a frail human body. The other young men from the temple who witness the fight are completely paralyzed by the shock. Gong-A is blown away, seeing that Hije managed to take down his opponent with only a year of training under his belt. She is amazed at how overwhelming the victory was, while another kid runs over to check if Ilchue is okay after hitting the ground. The day remains sunny and peaceful over the courtyard of the great temple of the Dokebis. Gong-A praises the kid, telling him he's fantastic.
But Ilsa jokes back that the amazing thing is that she can talk non-stop. Just then, the two spot a group of black-cloaked warriors preparing to leave the area. The temple's top boss, Mon Rayon, is standing before her warriors, going over the final instructions for the journey. She turns around, a bit curious, when she hears Issa call her chief right at that moment. The kid asks her where she's headed, and Monk Rayon tells him he'll be out of town for a few days. She explains that every year she goes out to hunt demons and help humans, showing them that the Dokayevis are peaceful beings. He reminds her that he found her during last year's hunt, and that's why she went to his old village. Mon Rayong asks how the task she assigned is going, and Ganga tries to excitedly tell her about the kid's big win. Suddenly, a hand appears from behind and lands on the kid's shoulder, startling him. Scaring him, Iltsui appears hugging his rival and tells the boss that Ace defeated him fair and square in a practice match. The boss is shocked to hear it, and the blue-haired kid praises the boy, promising to train even harder so he won't lose again. It seems really weird to him that Il Shui used his name in a friendly way, and Gong-a also finds all that attitude suspicious. Mong-ryan ruffles his hair, thrilled to see the kid has grown up and finally recognized his rival as his little brother. He lets out a silly giggle, making Gong-a realize instantly that it was just a ploy to win over the boss's affection. Mong Rajan bids them farewell happily, asking everyone to keep getting along from now on. Gejol says he's happy that Issei got along with Iltsui, and the kid just calmly nods at the situation and wonders when they got so close, and Huayol reveals he was just pretending not to like him to please his older brother. Iltsui. He gets upset seeing his brother falling for the human's words, but immediately invites the boys to go out and play together. He warns them that the outing is for men only, leaving Gong-a pretty pissed off about the exclusion. He lands a powerful punch on the insolent guy's face, while Issei stands there, lost in thought and happy to be called brother. Night quickly falls over the mountains, revealing a beautiful full moon shining in the clear, starry sky. The temple falls into complete silence under the soft light of the few lanterns lit at the main entrance. Silently, the large metal padlock of one of the wooden doors is opened in the middle of the darkness. The youngsters sneak into the temple's armory, calling out softly to Ilchui Hagyul. He worries if they should really be there, while Iltsui tells Issei to cut the crap and pick a weapon already. He suggests they decide who's the best through a real hunt outside the temple, and remembers that the boss forbade them from leaving until they become adults. Plus, it's not safe to find any demons near Wyzal. He says that the patrols heard a baby crying nearby, which suggests that it could be a demon child lurking in the area. Hearing that, the blue-haired kid suddenly changes his mind and suggests they call it off. The kid warns him that it's really dangerous to assume that, since there are several types of terrible demons that mimic that same sound. He warns him about the dangers of acting without certainty, but Iltsoi gets pissed and accuses him of showing off because he's read too many books. Iltsoi asks if the kid is coming with them or not, accusing Issei of being a coward, when he responds that he can't disobey the boss's orders. The blue-haired youth calls Wyjul to leave right away, and the younger one eagerly agrees to follow his brother. Ilchui grumbles and calls the human kid a pathetic loser.
As the trio descends the stairs of the Wisu Temple towards the forest, and the group's departure is observed in silence, with a rather serious and thoughtful expression. Meanwhile, deep in the dark forest, a sinister figure with red eyes lurks silently among the trees. The blue-haired youth grips his iron mallet tightly, feeling the hunter's blood boil and brimming with confidence for the fight. They talk about how this hunt, before coming of age, will serve as a true rite of passage to become demon hunters. Ilchui shows a proud and rather convinced smile as he agrees with his companion's reasoning, but soon, the other young man in the group mocks Issei for choosing a small axe, saying they didn't come out to chop wood. The leader of the trio chuckles to himself, thinking his human rival is completely freaked out by the situation. He boasts, recalling that he touched a demon's corpse when he was just a kid,
unlike the cowardly newbie. While Ilchui plans to prove his superiority in the royal hunt, Hiza worries if he made the right decision by choosing to join them. The human kid remembers the readings about the demon child, who usually only bothers with stupid demands and would be easy to take down. Still, the kid stays extremely alert to every sound or strange movement around him in the darkness. But Issei's biggest fear is the terrible possibility that the creature is not, in fact, the harmless demon they imagine. Suddenly, a loud and monstrous wail starts to echo with great force through every corner of the forest. The terrifying screams continue to spread rapidly among the trees, leaving a tense atmosphere in the place. Before them, a huge and strange four-legged creature emerges, with dozens of human heads crying attached to its body. The terrifying monster exhales a terrible hostile energy while the deformed faces continue screaming in pain, oblivious to the imminent danger. The four guys keep walking slowly down the dark forest path. Ilchu is pretty confused not finding anything there, swearing that the patrols had heard a baby crying in that area. The other kid suggests they give up and head back to the temple since there's no sign of any demon around, totally pissed. Ilchu raises his mace and yells at Is, accusing him of messing up the hunt because of his previous victory. With all the calm in the world, Is responds that he doesn't think he's better or stronger just because he won a practice fight. The human kid admits that he only won because he got lucky and caught his opponent off guard, stroking his rival's ego a bit. Ilchu lowers his guard a bit and asks, surprised, if his rival really thinks so humbly about their fight, and praises his opponent's physical strength and martial skill, leaving the young blue-haired warrior completely embarrassed. Coughing fake to hide his embarrassment, Ilchui boasts that the kid finally acknowledged his greatness. He proposes that they become sworn brothers from that point on, leaving the human boy quite surprised by the unexpected proposal, and a genuine smile spreads across his face as he confesses that he's just really happy because he always wanted an older brother to protect him. Seeing the kid's tender and honest reaction, Ilchui is completely at a loss for what to do and quite embarrassed. But before they could continue the conversation, the two are interrupted by a sudden noise that startles them. The sound of a baby crying echoes from behind the bushes, making them believe they finally found the target demon. Excited, Ilchui dashes forward, shouting that whoever catches the demon first will be the big winner of this competition. He runs laughing and tells the younger one to watch closely as a real big brother performs an exorcism in practice. However, upon crossing the trees, the blue-haired youth's eyes widen in sheer terror at what he sees before him. The terrifying creature emerges from the dense darkness, emitting piercing and extremely terrifying screeches. The others arrive exhausted right behind, and Weihol asks frightened if the demon child should look so strange. Ilchui stammers, completely terrified, agreeing that the creature, in fact, looks like a baby, but in a terrible way. The monster opens its mouth full of sharp teeth and lets out a guttural roar that makes the whole forest tremble. The demon's twisted face stares at the young warriors in a threatening and terrifying way in the middle of the night. They realize, horrified, that this abomination has multiple heads grinning macabrely all over its body, and runs to the spot and screams desperately for everyone to flee immediately, because this is no ordinary demon. Several long, head-filled necks start stretching at high speed towards the frightened group. The human kid reacts quickly and uses his shield to block a violent impact that was coming straight at him. The weird necks advance, slicing through the air near the young Dokaivus, who barely managed to dodge the deadly attacks. Weikikiyol freezes in sheer terror as the monstrous heads come straight at him, and he heroically jumps and manages to push the kid out of the way to save him, but ends up getting hit by the monster in the process, falling to the ground. The kid is grateful he brought the metal shield and immediately worries about the state of his friends. However, as he looks ahead, the young black-haired man's eyes widen in sheer desperation at what he sees. And Hui screams in desperation as one of the demon's grotesque heads manages to reach him and tear his skin. Boljang is also badly hit, screaming in agony as the monster's head bites him with extreme violence. Gaijul ends up falling to the ground, gravely wounded in the abdomen, bleeding heavily and without the strength to get back up. The giant demon roars triumphantly, leaving the young hunters completely cornered and wounded in the middle of the forest. The dozens of heads of the creature let out macabre laughs, openly mocking the desperation of the defenseless kids. The threat level of the demons is based on the survival rate of the hunters, ranging from 1 to 9, with 9 to 7 being low level. A level 7 demon, for example, still offers a 70% chance of survival for novices on missions. However, everything changes drastically when facing a level 6 demon, where a novice's survival rate plummets. The chances of a rookie hunter surviving against a creature as terrible as this is only a measly 20%. This level 6 abomination is a Songyong Ma, a powerful demon known for having multiple weeping human heads, and if it realizes the situation is the worst possible, confirming it's not just a simple demon child, but a lethal monster. To make matters worse, that low statistic is for official hunters, while they are just injured kids with no real experience. Despair grips everyone as they realize that if they stay, they will lose their lives mercilessly at the hands of the terrifying beast. And they try to keep calm, to think quickly, and find the best possible choice to save them from the impending disaster. Il Chui complains of pain on the ground while holding his wounds. Completely unable to keep fighting, he cries in terror as he feels firsthand that real demons are far more horrible and cruel than what he read in practice books. Clutching his injured arm, he laments through tears that he insisted on this absurd hunt and put everyone in mortal danger. Woljan coughs up blood with great difficulty as he feels the severity of his own wounds from the brutal attack. Il Chui screams in desperation that Huaigal was hit in the gut and he'll bleed out if he doesn't get immediate medical attention right now. Not knowing what to do and overwhelmed by panic, the blue-haired youth falls into absolute despair, thinking that they will all perish there. He wonders if they can escape that terrible monster while carrying a badly injured comrade on his back. That's when a cold, painful suggestion arises. Leave the injured companion behind so the others can escape. And you see his friends, wounded, standing firm as he grips his shield and small combat axe. Il Chui opens his eyes, unable to believe he actually heard such a selfish suggestion coming from his human companion, Ise. He explains pragmatically that his friend's wound is severe and won't survive the long journey back to the temple of Huisuilchui. He shouts indignantly at the idea of abandoning the kid, but Ise asks him to notice that the demon has mysteriously stopped attacking. Reveals that he read this demon prefers to devour prey consumed by desperation, and is just waiting for them to make a tough decision. The monster wants them to choose between abandoning the wounded companion to flee, or losing their lives together fighting right there. The monster's plan is to make them bear the guilt of abandoning Wei Jul and his desperation, but they seem to have no other way to survive. Il Chui weeps uncontrollably, realizing that this painful decision seems to be the only way out of this nightmare alive. Wegoda cries in pain, innocently asking his companions if he'll really be left alone there in the dark forest. The wounded kid watches the monstrous silhouette of the demon, slowly approaching him in the darkness. The monstrous creature with multiple heads revels in the little of third 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 of the human child makes a quick movement and hurls a heavy object with all his might towards the demon. The object soars high into the night sky and lands very close to the giant body of the multi-headed creature. It turns out to be a smoke bomb that starts releasing a dense gas on the ground to cover the vision of the terrible demon. A blinding and deafening explosion occurs in the middle of the forest, lighting up the entire canopy of trees around with smoke. And Weigel approaches through the smoke, preparing to make the most painful goodbye of his life. The injured younger one lets out a weary groan at the sight of the human child saying goodbye to him with an expression of immense pain, and desperately apologizes to his injured friend, vowing with all his might that someday he will take down that demon. The smoke from the explosion continues to spread through the dark forest, completely hiding their desperate escape. Silence returns for a moment to the dense foliage as the boys run to try and save their own lives. Quick and desperate footsteps echo through the muddy path as the survivors try to escape the danger. Il Chui runs without looking back, pushing himself to the limit, breathing heavily and exhausted. Weijol sheds bitter tears alone in the dark forest, accepting with great pain his tragic fate. The little Dokabi wonders alone if all his friends have already escaped safely from there. The other two wounded warriors keep desperately running through the dense foliage to save their lives, panicked and in agony. The blue-haired kid bitterly laments the tragic fate of his little buddy. He accepts that it was the best that could be done, as he didn't want to see anyone fall because of him, and understands Isa's cruel words, crying in pain. The little Wegod asks his friends to forget any plans for revenge and just try to survive. The gigantic, multi-headed creature with sharp teeth positions itself in a terrifying manner before the abandoned child on the ground, under the light. Red of the night, the terrible demon moves with ease to start its macabre feast in the middle of the dark forest, hidden behind a thick tree, and watches everything in complete silence, with its face splattered with blood. Terrible noises of bones being crushed start to echo through the damp air, signaling the tragic end of the young boy. The disturbing sound of sharp teeth devouring the kid spreads through the darkness of the forest, causing deep chills. The demon's large, bright red eyes stand out in the midst of that strange and extremely grotesque scene. Suddenly, Yahello's face appears fused to the demon's body, muttering about the cruelty of being left behind. The demon's newly acquired head screams in desperation, asking with so much hatred how they could have left him like that, and digs his fingers into the bark of the tree, completely terrified, hearing the voice of his friend begging for them to wait for him. The monster speeds through the forest, the new head weeping and promising that soon everyone will join in this pain. In